YouTube, false start in recording this Monday because the first mission was a defection mission. So yeah, that's always barrel of laughs, watching the defectors get stuck in corners everywhere. Anyways, that's why I'm playing Oberon though, because he can definitely heal the Cavor defectors. So let's go ahead and get started for the secondary mission here. Loadout options? I forget, it's been a week since I've done this, at least. Hello? Hello? Randomized? You gonna be randomized? It didn't work, okay. Try that again. There we are. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and... Oh, that's gonna be a fun loadout. Let's swap over to a Synoid Simulor that is ready to actually be used there, since I've got, you know, however many copies of every Syndicate weapon. Alrighty, so what have I got going on here with my Simulor? Because I don't think I've shown my Simulor off yet. I don't think I've shown my Zephyr off yet. The Vipers, the Glaive. I don't know what focus school I'm going to run with Zephyr today. It's always a question, but it looks like I get to keep my Shady, so that's always fun. Favorite companion of all time, probably. Although I will tell you this, the new MOAs are pretty awesome too. So I showed this briefly, but I'll go ahead and show off again. So the Synoid Simulor used to be one of the absolute craziest weapons in the entire game. When you could spam out a single click with Mirage and create an explosion of Simulor bubbles coming together, that was the good old heyday of this weapon. But it's kind of suffered as time has gone on. The rework certainly killed the Simulor in most people's eyes, and while I find that it's still a pretty crazy good weapon, it's nothing resembling the DPS that it used to be able to put out, since you can only set off one explosion that's going to be with the alt fire, as opposed to these 15 explosions or more per clip, you know. Yeah, anyways, hopefully you'll see the distance switch this weapon has fallen. DE, if you're watching this, I doubt that anybody from Digital Extremes will ever watch this. But if you're watching this, the Simulor needs some help. The nerf has hit it far too hard, and while it's still a usable weapon, it's not nearly as good as it used to be. Now, what is the Simulor in its current status? Well, primarily, it's not a crit weapon, it is a status weapon. And it's a status weapon that is extremely inaccurate, and while dealing 0 self-damage, also deals explosions in areas of effect that are very hard to control. Which is why the old Simulor was better, because you could just spit out so many balls and so many explosions that you were able to essentially negate for the weapon, or make up for the weapon's lack of accuracy, negate that because of its because of how many explosions and how much area you were covering. Now you kind of just have to hope that the balls come together in a location where you want them to, and pray that the enemies happen to be standing next to that location when you detonate it. Anyways, so, as you can see, this is one of the few weapons in the game where I find heavy caliber to be of a lot of use, because of how inaccurate the weapon is already. I mean, the thing about it is that the 100% accuracy belies the fact that the balls don't that the Simulor fires out travel a fixed distance away from the barrel and don't travel in a straight line unless there's, you know, unless it's the first one being fired out. The second and third ball always get stuck to where the first one was, and so on and so forth. Now, it takes, I believe, what is it nowadays? 4 Simulor shots to combine, 4 or 5, something like that, to actually make a full singularity that will start pulling enemies together rather than simply damaging them. So that's why we're going with the split chamber here. It used to be that you would actually consider not taking split chamber on the weapon, just to make sure that you could get more total vacuums created out of it. You know, you could have more control over how they were created. But as it is, in the weapon's current state, there's no reason not to form the vacuums, so we're going to go with that. Anyway, so heavy caliber, serration, split chamber, and then a whole bunch of elemental mods. We've got corrosive blast as the elemental setup here, and then I've got Stormbringer on here to just amp up the percentage of corrosive damage even higher. Now, arguably, you could also swap that out for, where is it? Vigilante armaments here, and that gives That gives roughly the same damage, but not the per stack thing is questionable as to whether that's reading accurately, because the Simulor does its mathematics weirdly. Because it's trying to do the mathematics based on how many balls are coming together, which the actual number is before multi-shot. So like that's questionable because you'll stack up the weapon faster. But like I said, there's some weird interactions with multi-shot. I find that it's less useful to go for the Vigilante Armorist than it is just amp up the percentage of corrosives that the ticks of damage dealt by the Simulor singularities shred off armor pretty quickly, and that way when you do detonate them, the enemies usually are on low armor. So that's where the Simulor is nowadays. I don't find it to be that useful. I actually am anyways, let's talk about Zephyr. I am actually still looking to get my Zephyr Prime. I just need the blueprint, I think, and I can craft it, so I'll probably be looking to get hold of one of those off of trade chat pretty soon. Anyways, this build looks like it's got far too many forma on it, but keep in mind that I was forming out this Exilus polarity for Ice Spring, I believe, right? Which then points out that I still have far too many forma on it. But it's Zephyr. I've tried a lot of different builds in the past trying to find something that I find to be entertaining. And I guess the way that I enjoy playing her, that's set up here, is I enjoy large duration on my Zephyr, so that I can keep my jet stream on for a long time, and so that I can also have very long dashes with her what is that called? Tailwind? Yeah, because the jump distance actually depends on your power duration. So the more duration that you have, the farther that the jump goes. In this case, it's jumping almost 30 meters, which allows me to clear a tile with a single bound, and which means that I can just absolutely spam this 6 mana ability out on things like the Plains of Eidolon or the Orb of Alice, and I can get a very long distance in a quick fashion. So that's the primary use I have for Zephyr right now. So what we're going with here to get lots of duration is Continuity, Narrow-Minded, Constitution. And that gives tons of power duration. I'm spending a little bit of that duration for Fleet Expertise. Arguably, you can also go for Streamline, and I feel like if you're going to be going arguably you could just go for Streamline without a secondary mod, because apparently I'm going Fleet Expertise and Streamline here. Actually, the more I'm thinking about this, here's what I'm going to do with this build, because I do feel like 175 is more efficiency than I need. I am going to go with 160 efficiency here, and that leaves me an extra mod slot. And see, here again, this is why I've got so many form on my Zephyr, is because I find that the build I run on her is pretty amorphous. It's not one of my favorite Warframes, but I do think that Zephyr is strong and underutilized, so there's that. There's that, at least. Zephyr is a lot stronger than a lot of people give her credit for. So I'll go ahead and slap in an Intensify here to give me more increased movement speed, more increased projectile speed and whatnot. Just because I feel like the increased projectile speed could be fun with the Simulor, but more importantly because I do enjoy the heavily increased movement speed on Jetstream. It's the number one reason why I'm playing the build like this. So we're going to go ahead and go with the Fleet Expertise there. Arguably you could separate... You could change that, substitute that into just a Streamline. That gives you a huge amount of duration, which tends to, I find, tends to actually fling you into walls and things if you're in an enclosed space like we're going to be. So that's not, the duration on Zephyr is kind of a personal preference thing when it comes to min-maxing it, because you don't necessarily want to go beyond. You don't necessarily want to go beyond a certain threshold, beyond which Tailwind becomes just completely uncontrollable. So these are the stats I'm going to go with: 10 energy and 25 meters jump on that. Beyond that, of course, we're also just running Vitality Redirection for some generic tank mods, since Zephyr has minimal armor. Even Zephyr Prime doesn't have fantastic armor. And the energy pool on Zephyr is not as good as on Prime, so we're not going to be looking towards any sort of quick thinking there. Remaining mods here: Rejuvenation and Aviator. Now, the remaining idea that I have for Zephyr, and I haven't set up this particular build for it, but that I think could be pretty effective, would be to go ahead and substitute in something like an adaptation in here. I feel like Zephyr, because she has a damage reduction skill in her Tailwinds, and because she has such massive quantities of health and shields when you combine those together, Zephyr does become a pretty good candidate for running adaptation. Because now the biggest reason not to run it is just because Zephyr with Tailwinds on rarely actually takes any damage whatsoever, you know, the biggest locations where you'd see her taking damage would be things like Eidolon fights out in the PoE and whatnot. So there's some questionable utility to be had there. Also, I'm not going to run the maxed out narrow-minded because there's some interactions with turbulence where if you reduce the radius below about 2 meters, like you would with a maxed out narrow-minded, Zephyr actually starts to have bits of her stick out of the bubble, and so you'll start to take massively increased damage compared to if you just go with that particular level of narrow-minded there. So there's a lot of min-maxing to be done with Zephyr, but ultimately the important thing to understand about the Warframe is that Tornado is not a particularly useful ability because of how it takes enemies and makes them difficult to shoot just by floating them up in the air. It's been improved, but ultimately it's still not the best for crowd control. I would much rather be using Hydroid's giant tentacle monster or something like that to keep enemies in place. Airburst, it makes the tornadoes bigger. It's a waste of energy to knock down enemies when you could just tailwind and jump straight through them, or just bullet jump and jump straight through them. It really, just the fact that it's knocking down enemies in a skill shot in front of you, you could just become the skill shot because of how agile Zephyr is. So I really feel like Airburst as a reworked ability is absolutely a throwaway skill. Tailwind, with the changes that they made to rework Tailwind, where they took her old dive bomb and combined that into Tailwind, I think that's great. And it opened up space for a new ability, but the Airburst that they added as a new ability was pretty useless. Anyways, so that's some of the junk that we're going to be having on this build. I think has seen better days. Now, what do I actually think is going to carry me here? It's my Twin Vipers. And this is not an ideal Twin Vipers ribbon, but the bonus magazine capacity at least is pretty useful because it increases our magazine to 66 shots in the clip. And that means that since the Twin Vipers spit out 40 bullets, we actually can keep firing them for perhaps a second and a half. Or the way I feel that I use them is rather that I can get 2 good bursts of damage out, 2 or 3 good bursts, as opposed to the normal Vipers, which only have 4 rounds in the clip on your Twin Vipers Wraith, and so you might get 1 good burst out of it, and then you've shot out 30 or so rounds, and then you might as well reload at that point. Anyways, critical chance is what you want on the Vipers Wraith. They have so much fire rate that stacking a large amount of status chance is largely irrelevant because you'll proc every type of elemental status this weapon has by the time you've emptied the clip on it. It's just with 66 rounds in the magazine that you can empty almost instantly, you're not going to ever be at a loss for being able to apply status effects. So we're going to go ahead and go with the critical effects here, the Pistol Pestilence and the Jolt, just to stack up some bonus critical damage. But I'm not... not critical, corrosive damage, so you can shred out some armor. Just because you might as well, but there's not really a need to do that. Now, that 40 fire rate is being accomplished by a lethal torrent here. You don't want to increase the fire rate on the Vipers any more than that. 40 rounds a second already will cut through your ammo pool incredibly fast. Beyond that, we also got Viral Diffusion for more multi-shot, Hornet Strike, and like I said, critical chance, critical damage on the Crystal Gambit Target Cracker, and some more critical chance there off the ribbon. Now, the ribbon would be better off if it was something like critical chance and bonus raw damage, so you could just splatter out even more damage and not even have to burst the weapon for a half a second to kill enemies. But as you can see, the Twin Vipers here will obliterate any object that is in front of them. I'm not going to be able to sustain them forever because we're running Shade here. And Shade, as you can see, has Vacuum to be able to pull in ammunition, and Shade has Ambush to be able to amp up our weapon damage occasionally. I mean, Ambush is kind of inconsistent, but I find that it still does help, especially if you're going to go for a finisher-oriented playstyle. Particularly, I feel like this mod here, the Ambush, synergizes best with something like a Sleeper Equinox, where you can be essentially passively putting a whole group of enemies to sleep, and then you deliberately break Shade's invisibility to attack whoever has the largest health pool, so something like a Bombard, for example, to make sure that the finisher kills that enemy first, and then you can do finisher kills on the rest of them. I feel like there's some synergy there, but beyond that, like, I would rather be playing a carrier, since we're going to rely on the Vipers to be able to amp up our DPS by quite a bit, and carrier can actually act as a ammo mutation, because one thing that you will see people doing on some of these Vipers and Furious and similarly high firing weapons is putting in a mod slot into an ammo mutation. Now I find that my personal playstyle, it does not fit that. I prefer to simply fire the Vipers in extremely short bursts and try to manage my ammo economy that way, rather than spraying and praying and just mowing down enemies and then picking up lots of ammunition in the process. I find that with Carrier, it works. Without, we'll see. Finally, we have a Glaive. I would like a Glaive Prime, but haven't gotten there yet, and holy cow, this is not even a build. Looks like I have lost a mod. And my guess would be, since I didn't have a Buzzkill in that slot, that I was running a Prime Fever Strike. So let's put that in there. I do feel like the Life Strike is an okay mod on the Glaive. And nowadays, I've been kind of just going back and reevaluating every weapon that I'm running, whether I would rather be running Life Strike on it or not. We're going to go ahead and put in an unranked copy of Life Strike there. Just because having the ability to recover health at long range is always a good idea. Now, I actually have gotten a hold of Gleaming Talon, so I might just put that on there just to try it out. I literally have gotten a hold of the Gleaming Talon stance and have not gotten a chance to try it on anything yet, so it's got a pause combo and a reverse combo. Interesting. Yeah, that was one of the last stances I've ever actually gotten to drop. I've gotten a few copies of it since then, just because it's been dropping reasonably frequently out on the Orb Phallus. But beyond that, I haven't seen it for a long while. So what are we running here? Well, we're going to go ahead and stack as much raw damage as possible on this, just so that the thrown attack is able to deal maximal DPS. Because we want that to burst. It's going to be one single instance of damage that's going to burst similarly to a explosive weapon, and we want that to burst as hard as possible with a single hit. So that's why I'm running Buzzkill for more slash damage, since it's primarily a slash weapon. Then we've got Voltaic Strike and Prime Fever Strike to stack massive quantities of corrosive damage there. And we finally got the Pressure Point for more base damage. Now, I've also got Fury on here just because I find that the Glaive has a rather slow base move animation. But that could questionably be another damage mod if you felt like it was better to set that up with another damage mod there. Life Strike again, just because life stealing off of the thrown attack is great. And then I'm running Power Throw and Whirlwinds. Whirlwind to make sure that the throw actually is able to hit enemies at a longer distance, and Power Throw to make it so that the thrown attack explodes when it hits. Now we're going to have to be careful with that. Again, Power Throw is one of those mods that really does not. It really belies its functionality, because punch through is kind of irrelevant on Glaive since they bounce between enemies anyway. But what Power Throw does do is it causes the weapon to detonate more explosively when it hits the end of its bouncing range. So what some people will do is they will actually grab the quick return to make it less likely that you kill yourself, since the Power Throw will deal self-damage, and the quick return makes it so that the weapon goes out, it explodes, it comes back. It goes out, it explodes, it comes back. And that's very easy to control. But I feel like with Zephyr here, we can probably get away with the Whirlwinds and just get more range on it. Besides, Whirlwind will also stack with Jetstream to give the Glaive huge amounts of mobility, so let's just see how that functions. And finally, just for the sake of... Oops. No, come on. Just for the sake of being able to keep our abilities up and being able to fly all over the place, we'll take Cindric. For the fun of it. What we got here, we got Rescue with Elemental Enhancement, and then Elemental Toxin. So that's going to be a pain in the butt trying to keep the rescue target alive. I'll spam out some tornadoes once he's out of his cell, and we'll see if I can actually get that accomplished. But I don't think this rescue target's going to be long for the world. Zephyr does not have much in the way of crowd control, unless you build her for massive tornado somethings, presumably lots of power range to make them move faster. I don't think they do move faster though with power range. This is the thing, and that's really the issue with the tornadoes too. Is they're very hard to min-max for, and to actually get more value out of. Yeah. Because the power range scaling of tornadoes is just the radius within which they will be spawned. It's not the speed at which they move. You can get the tornadoes to last longer. You can get the damage out of them, but with bonus power strength. But the radius at which they're spawned is the only power range scaling. And if you want the tornadoes to be more effective and to be able to rework Zephyr into a state where she could actually have some decent crowd control, they need to have their speed at which they move scale faster. Because otherwise, they're mostly just visual clutter that picks up a couple enemies and keeps them from being useful. Well, let's go ahead and turn on the speed here. Because with the turbulence on, that doesn't make us quite fast. Which way are we going? Is it this way? No, it's this way. Okay. As you can see, we fly a very long distance. And as you can see, we also take very little damage while doing so. Like I said, the thing with the inaccuracy of the Synoid Simulor. It does fly a very long distance with the turbulence on. That's cute. I like that. It flies a very long distance with the turbulence on. As you can see, this weapon just does not have anything resembling accuracy in. Sure, turbulence isn't helping that because it's making the little singularities fly even farther, but what we get out of the Simulor nowadays is pretty good status effects off of the bubbles as they're sitting there, but you have to manually detonate the explosions with an alt fire. And as you can see, the damage just doesn't kill things until it alt fires. It's just not nearly as good of a weapon as it used to be. There's that skill. Again, I feel like it's just as effective to bullet jump straight through an enemy at that point. Ow! I think that's the explosions from the rockets there that were doing me in. Either the flamethrower from the Hayaka Master, one or the other, but that hurt. Thankfully we got rejuvenation on, so both Zephyr and her Shady are going to regenerate here. And so let's just go ahead and let the mission play itself out. I don't have much to say other than that rescue missions are kind of boring up until the point where you actually get to the rescue target. This is a nice little interaction too. The reason why I do enjoy playing Zephyr sometimes is specifically because of turbulence and that augment, where you can have some fun interactions like these super long range. Like as you can see, oh god, fire. As you can see, they don't go nearly as the shit. Oh yeah, right, toxin damage. Bonus toxin damage. Woo! Isn't that fun to deal with? Yeah, like I said, these are very high damage enemies. I do not expect the rescue target to be long for the world. And I'm not even taking hardly any damage from the Simulor. Like, the biggest issue here is also that they have elemental damage resistance due to having that bonus elemental damage on them. So I do not see that we're going to be able to clear anything with this Simulor. I'm just missing at that point. That is dealing hardly any damage. Yeah, this is just not a good weapon setup here. Alright. The Vipers it is. We're going to pull out the Vipers, and we're just going to have to use our 4 clips of ammo to as good of effect as we can. Okay, that's dead. It's dead to status effects if nothing else. A lot of slash procs being applied there.
The captive will be in one of these cells.
Could you please not? Like I said, I don't normally spray and pray, but they're just that destructively high in health. Alright, I would give you the weapon, but I kinda need it myself.
Subject found. You need to bring the captive to safety. Protect
One those out.
costs.
Yeah, I would love to give you a weapon there, buddy, but we kind of need to... There we go. That's the ammo economy I'm used to. Alrighty. Well, we will have to go ahead and res the hostage, so that Zephyr can actually do... Where did he bleed out? What's going on here? Is he on this side of the door or that side of the door? Where did he go? Oh my word, I can't see the hostage! Oh, here he is. Fingers crossed I don't just get killed. No, I did just get killed. Gosh damn it.
I'm down.
I saw that the turbulence was about to run out, but I couldn't do anything about it because of needing to revive. Are you serious? Okay, this mission is a wash. I'm gonna die instantly, aren't I? No, I'm not. Woo! Okay. Run like the blazes, Mr. Hostage.
They got me. Tenno.
Alright, fine. I have to give this man the guns at this point. And I have better options. Here you go. Defend yourself, please. You at least don't run out of ammo. Oh god. I heard that. Zephyr is extremely agile, and it doesn't matter. This deals approximately no damage. Yep, okay, this mission is a straight-up wash, I think. Oh, Shade, you can keep me invisible. That's fine. I really don't understand, because I've got the invisibility prioritized over the Sanctuary on him, I thought. Can you just move at all, Hostage, please?
They got me.
Oh, he refuses to leave this room! No matter what I do, he refuses to leave this room! Yeah, this is great. Yep, please. There goes Shade. He's just dying instantly. Yeah, I can't... Zephyr just does not have the crowd control to be able to handle these rooms. And these two Hayekas, because they're melee, are cutting through the turbulence and just murdering me each time. I'll try it once. Try the revive once. Okay, we have to get out of here though, Hostage. We have to get out of here! Maybe if I just keep moving, he'll respawn next to me, because that's the thing that they do sometimes, is they just drag the hostages next to you. Come on, get over here. Oh, are we actually gonna get out of here? Ah, there's a chance. There's a chance. I'm going straight to extraction. I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm going to worry about the hostage. I'm just going to hope that wherever he is currently located, it is not next to enemies. Come on! Yes! Woo! There we go. Oh man, apologies for that whoop into the microphone. But that was, frustrating, to say the least. It's completed specifically because the hostage respawns into a location where there were not enemies murdering him. Because he finally managed to take cover long enough that I could get out of that room and get him somewhere else, but holy cow. That was, a humbling experience, to say the least. Yeah, I don't like Zephyr very much, in case you couldn't tell. I don't like the Simulor very much in its current state. I don't like Zephyr very much. I don't like throwing weapons very much. The only part of this entire loadout that I enjoy is the Twin Vipers. Zephyr just doesn't do anything. She's a tank. She doesn't take damage from hardly any location. I mean, I will take adaptation on her once I actually get the Zephyr Prime and I can get that formatted out. But Turbulence just does a very good job of preventing her from taking damage from other sources and reducing incoming damage, which is a great condition to be running adaptation in, because it means that she can take 10 instances of damage without dying normally, or however many it takes to fully stack adaptation. I forget, 9? I don't know how many instances it is. But it's just the rest of her kit, Tailwind and Turbulence, are fantastic, but the other two abilities do practically nothing for you. Tornadoes can crowd control 4 enemies. They usually don't pick up more than 5 or 6 at a time. And in a room where there's 20 enemies shooting at you, they just don't do anything for you. And Turbulence can block a lot of incoming damage, but it can't block everything. So, I don't know. I find Zephyr to be frustrating to use. Ultimately fun. Ultimately very fun. As you can see, I got out of that mission in a hurry once the operator... Or once... Not the operator. Thanks, Oris. Once the rescue turret got to a location where he was not being killed, and then revived, and then killed, and then revived, and then killed again. But beyond that, like, I don't see her as being a good tank. And I guess this is where we go into some theory crafting about the game, right? The reason why I find a lot of other Warframes that are very survivable, you know, things like Oberon, things like even things like Inaros, and even Hydroid, if we're going to go that far. I even find Hydroid to be a better tank, and it's because his giant tentacle swarm can spawn 10 up to 20 tentacles, and that can crowd control up to 20 enemies at once. And Hydroid also Well, Hydroid also has the Undertow to be able to block incoming damage, going invulnerable for a minute and healing back up. Hydroid still has mobility just like Zephyr does. I feel like anything that Zephyr can do, Hydroid can do twice as well, because ultimately he has crowd control that can hit 20 enemies as opposed to 4 to 6. And the same goes for something like a Naros. And Naros' ult can crowd control large groups of enemies. And Naros' Sandstorm can crowd control large amounts of enemies. You know, you take Oberon. Oberon can apply radiation to huge groups of enemies. Oberon is fantastic. Plus, Oberon is a great healer for your whole team. You know, a lot of the tank frames in the game bring more to the table than Zephyr does. I guess the good comparison would be something like Chroma, right? Where Chroma it does not bring hardly any crowd control to the table. His ult can blind huge groups of enemies, but most Chroma builds that you see are not focused on keeping his ult in play for very long. Most Chroma builds that you see are focused on amping up his armor and making sure that he's practically indestructible. But the thing about it is that Chroma's defensive abilities do make him practically indestructible, as opposed to Zephyr's, where, as you're seeing that last mission, Hayekas, of all things, are a silver bullet because they're melee units. And there really isn't a silver bullet against Chroma, other than maybe slash procs, but slash procs get around practically everything. You know? Zephyr would die just as fast. And the benefit of playing a Chroma, I guess, would be that he gains bonus damage on his weapons, so he can instantly kill enemies, as opposed to Zephyr, who, as you see in that game, in that last mission, doesn't even have damage worth talking about, you know? And since the weapons there were mediocre, she just couldn't clear things. So that's my rant about Zephyr and why I feel like she's possibly not the worst Warframe in the game right now, but I can't name a Warframe that's struggling more than she is at the moment. And I find it kind of odd that they didn't do more for her kit when they put out her Prime and gave her a rework. Like, I still find that the changes that Digital Extremes made to Tailwind are fantastic, and they make the ability so much more fun to use, where you can navigate anywhere in the air now with it. Essentially, just point. You can go straight up and hover. You can go straight down and dive bomb the enemies. You can fly around in a path, you know. But I'm shaking my head right now because I don't know how to fix the Warframe. I think that her second ability has to be something that's a bit stronger. Otherwise, she's just going to be... Either her second ability has to be something that's not a throwaway, worthless tool, or her ultimate's going to have to be able to grab and pick up more enemies, because the augment for the ultimate does spawn more tornadoes, but prevents said tornadoes from being able to pick up enemies, which makes them essentially worthless as a tank ability. And since nothing else on her kit really deals damage, the Warframe is essentially just broken. I'm done ranting. Talk to you later, YouTube. Have a nice day.